Okay, here is the graphing videos part 2. It's probably the 10th time I am recording this, but part 2 for you guys. In part 1 from this video series, I was giving you an x value or a couple x values, and the question said to find the ordered pair solutions. So you took the x value, you plugged it in, did the math, and you found the y value that went with it. That's basically all we're going to be doing to graph a line. So the basis of this chapter, I want you guys to be able to graph a line. And you should be able to do it pretty quickly. So from now on, you won't necessarily be given the x values to plug in. You can choose any values that you'd like, but you want to choose at least 3. So if you notice, the ones that we're doing, they're all going to line up. So all of the graphs that we do this chapter, they're all going to be lines. So if you did the math right and you graph correctly, it's going to be a line. If you did something wrong, you're going to end up with a triangle, okay? So these should all be lines. If you do something wrong, you're going to get a triangle. We don't want triangles. We don't want crooked lines. So then you want to make sure you go back and see if you graphed the points right. That would be in the first part of the video. Or you want to make sure that you did the math right. Those would be the 2 reasons that you're not getting a line. And just so you know, this chapter we're not going to do any. I think they might talk about it in the book, but we're not going to. If you were ever given an equation that had an x squared or an x to the third or any other exponent, it's not going to be a line. Okay, so not every equation is going to give you a line, just the ones that we're going to do for this chapter. None of the equations that we're going to graph will have any exponents in it. Okay? All right, so here's what I do. I usually choose the values 0, 1, and 2. Some people pick -1, 0, 1. It doesn't matter, okay? It's totally up to you. I like to pick 0, 1, and 2. 0 is easy because anything times 0 is 0. The other numbers are up to you. You want to make sure that it fits on your graph, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Okay, so later you'll see we might choose different numbers, but for right now, I would just always choose 0, 1, and 2. So we're going to choose your 3 x values. I choose 0, 1, and 2 usually. Okay? And you're going to do the math. So you're doing it 3 times. So first I'm going to do y equals -4 times 0 plus 5. Well, that's 0, so y equals 5. So when my x value is 0, my y value is 5. So I'm making a table now just to help me organize my information. And then if x is 1, I'm just going to do -4 times 1 plus 5. So -4 plus 5 is 1. So when my x value is 1, my y value is 1. And then the last one that I chose here would be when x is 2. So -4 times 2 plus 5, -8 plus 5, my y value would be -3. Now I have a table of values. Really, these are just like 3 points. There's my 3 ordered pairs. I chose the x values, and you can choose any x values you want, but I have to do the math to find out the y value that goes with it. Okay? All right, now let's see if this works. Okay, so online there's this graphing calculator, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to, ooh, I can, to see which values I just plugged in. I think we had the points 0, 5, 1, 1, and 2, -3. So let me go to my graph. I know there's nothing to graph, but we had 0, 5. I forget. We had 0, 5, 1, 1, and 2, -3. Okay, 0, 5, 1, 1, and 2, -3. Now they don't look so pretty here because of the way this graph is. But you see how they line up? My equation that we did, okay, it's not going to work out here, but the equation that we typed in was negative 4x plus 5. And if I graph that equation, hopefully you remember, my points were 0, 5, 1, 1, and 2, negative 3. So you see how the points, I just chose 0, 1, and 2 as my x values, and I ended up with the points that were on the line. If somebody chose negative 1 as an x value, they would have gotten something up here. So no matter what point we choose for x, if you do the math, you're going to end up with some point that is on this line. So therefore, all we really need is any 3 points. So we had picked this point, and this point. And then I just take a straight edge through them. There's my line. So that is all you need to do, okay? So it doesn't matter which 3 numbers we choose for x. When we do the math, it's going to give us a point on the line. So all we need is 3, and then we will have our line. Okay, let's see if I can get back to... All right, here we go. Next page. So why don't you try this one? Pause the video, and I want you to choose 3 x values. You can use 0, 1, and 2 if you'd like, but you don't have to. And I want you to use that equation, y equals 2/3 x minus 1. Find out your 3 y values, plot your 3 points, draw your line, and there you go. Okay, so pause it. I'm going to keep going, but if you pause it, then you can check out what I got when you're done. So if I plug in 0, y equals 2/3 times 0 minus 1. Y equals negative 1. When I plug in 1, I get y equals 2/3 times 1 minus 1. That would be 2/3 minus 1, so y equals negative 1/3. And the third point, y equals 2/3 times 2 minus 1. So that would be 4/3 minus 1, and y would equal positive 1/3. So here is the list of points that I got, and I'm going to graph them. Now I know I have fractions, and some people are like, how do I graph a fraction? It's all right, I just have to estimate. So 0, negative 1. That means I go nothing left and right, down 1. There's that point. 1, negative 1/3 is going to be about down there. So I'm approximating where negative 1/3 is. And 2, positive 1/3 is up there. I'm just approximating. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a straight edge right here. So I'm going to try to be pretty good with my graph. So that would be my line. I found 3 points. Even though they were fractions, I just estimated where they would be, and I draw a line through them. Okay? Now something I wanted you to point out here from this one, when the coefficient of x, which means the number that you are multiplying x by every time, when that's a fraction, it would be a really good idea, instead of using any number, to use multiples of your denominator. So since this denominator was 3, it would be to my benefit to use multiples of 3. So for this example, maybe I should have done 0, 3, and 6. Then I would come out with whole numbers instead of fractions. It's your choice. It doesn't matter. 0 is still going to give me negative 1. When I plug in 3, I should get 1 as an answer. And when I plug in 6, I'm going to get 3 as an answer. So 3, 1 was about right here, and 6, 3. So my graph's off the way I graphed it, but it would have been lined up had I done it right. So again, you might want to write this down in your notes. If your coefficient of x is a fraction, look at the denominator. Choose multiples of your denominator, and that would be really good choices to use. Okay? If you check out what I have over here, you can pause it if you want, and there's some other examples that you could use for x values. Okay, I would like you to now graph this one. I'm going to say pause it while you're doing it. You're going to have to pause anyway because I'm going to turn this off here in a second. so that it fits. So go ahead, do this one, and then when you come to video part 3, the answer will be there.